Someone had told me that when you feel like you've had the rug yanked out from under you, that maybe you've been launched instead. That it was about perspective. Hey, I'm Matt Wolf. I've lived in Vermont for 19 years now. I was in a band. I've been playing since I was like 11 years old. And this guy, and famous in our minds. Like I know in retrospect, I wonder what a 14-year-old, I mean, how famous he might have been. But this famous guitar player from a rock band in Boston had come and spent the summer with us, like teaching a bunch of 13, 14, 15-year-old kids like different songs, like how to work together as a band, how to play music. This was the guy that, for no reason we could think of, because he could be doing all kinds of things, running around playing shows and doing big rock star, took a huge chunk of his life to hang out and make us feel like we were worth something. And then he was gone. But it sort of, I say things started there because I remember, that was the first suicide death I'd ever experienced. Understanding sort of the cycle of grief's important. Like it's okay to, you're going to go through a phase where you're going to be angry at them. Don't feel bad for being mad, right? Like I've hated friends of mine for robbing us of being able to continue being with them. You know what I mean? And that people could feel guilty about that. Like it's okay. It's part of the cycle. Anger is part of the cycle. You know what I mean? And I don't think that. My personal feeling is that I don't think that cycle ever goes away. Kind of like if you drop a rock in a pond and the ripples go out, it might take longer to move through that cycle. Leon's been gone, 20 years now, more than 20 years. And I think, I went through that grief cycle probably 5 or 6 times in the day, when we found out that he was gone. Now, 20 years later, it might take me 5 years to move through the cycle, but I feel like I kind of still do. And there's comfort in it now. He's still a part of my life. I haven't forgotten him. Sometimes being resilient means maybe not doing well. Like I think one thing that I've learned from, especially from grieving, is to embrace it. Like if I have a hard feeling like that, I don't try to run away from it. I try to embrace it. And sometimes that means looking really ugly and messy. But I've learned that, at least in my life, if you try to deny those feelings, that hard time, they'll keep following you. One of the things that's interesting, one of the things that I've done, I sort of doodle. And I developed this habit of kind of doodling to music. So I pick an album that was reflective of how I was feeling at the time. And then just sort of it was always with pen, so I couldn't erase, and just kind of put pen to paper and see what happens, trying to focus more on the music than the drawing. That's been an experiment of mine for most of my life. So it's like, for me, it's, something you could do, especially with teenagers that are like drawing scary looking things or writing dark poetry or something like that. That's sometimes that's catharsis, right? That can sometimes be how we deal. So I think about something, if someone writes, dark poetry, having an emotion, that's calling attention to a need. And then it would be a matter of asking that person what that need is, because only you can, determine what you need. Are you okay? Do you need other outlets for this? Do you need someone to talk to about it? In an accepting sort of way, instead of a judging, like, that was a really scary poem you wrote, and I don't think that's okay. You don't want to attach any sort of shame or blame to things like that. It needs to be more normalized. I think one of the things that we've done in America as a culture that's really unfortunately gave suicide a lot of power is not talking about it. We're afraid to talk about it. There is a story in a previous job I had. We had youth leadership councils, and a young, early 20s woman that was our youth coordinator for that was having a hard time with recruitment and literally stuck her head out a window one day, second story window one day, and said to somebody, "Hey, you, come here, come inside, come in the door downstairs. I want to talk to you about something." And this guy that was walking home from school, and he came in and she talked to him about the youth council and do you want to join? I think 2 or 3 years later, that guy that was walking down the street told the young woman that was coordinating that he was walking home to kill himself that day because he didn't feel like he was connected to anything, didn't feel a need to be around, and she stuck her head out a window. It changed the course of his life, right? Like you never can, you never can tell when saying something to somebody might change the trajectory of things. In order for us to be able to access supports and talk about things comfortably, we sort of have to destigmatize suicide to begin with. Make it something we can talk about more comfortably as humans. We need not only a sense of belonging, like somebody sees me and understands me. I can be ugly and messy and not my best self, and they still love me anyway, and also a sense of community, like connection to something bigger. And if somebody seems like they're having a hard time, or even someone that's causing trouble, it's like that to me means connect even more.